So then, we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle Services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end. Per Yeshayahu the prophet, there are areas where we can study also the Holy Quran, because the Holy Quran teaches us then the very level of the Gentile layer from the first son of Ibrahim, Ishmael. And the sons of Ishmael, they are going to be taking charge of the layer of the Gentiles very shortly. While yet there are some events that must take place prior of, let's try to understand what goes on as far as the Chinese system and understand how then the nations are going to relate with it. Firstly then, from Daniel the politician, we find then himself explaining in the 11th chapter the areas of the world most influential regarding then the base of the statue, iron and clay. So then Daniel the politician mentioned then the kingdom of the north, the kingdom of the south, and then we understand there is the kingdom of the east. These are the main players of the base of the statue. Namely, then we find the Soviet Union, the north, we find then Africa is the kingdom of the south, and then the east is China. Those are the main players. Starting the understanding of the time of the end, the Gentile level, prior of the introduction of the sons of Ishmael, that's how it's going to play. However, how can we then understand what goes on as far as the war is concerned? There are many nations involved with this Korean situation, and it is amazing how people speak words that are so contradictory when they are giving an interview. First then, for instance, in America, most of the politicians, they always speak double. They are not either cold nor hot. First, the comment was then involved an analyst regarding then the rhetoric talk of the North Koreans being monotonous and then repetitious. Understandable. But then later, rather than understanding the lack of the nation then going forward with the war, because they did not find any evidence of movements of soldiers on the borders or any other event or situation presenting itself a further danger, then later on then the deployment of anti-air arms in Guam. So then speaks in a situation regarding the rhetoric and non-alarming, and then at the same time speaks of then sending these bases of anti-air arms then to Guam, understanding then the North Koreans don't even have a weapon to reach this area. So it is so freaking ridiculous, it's absolutely stupid. There is no other word to say. Because either a person understands there is no danger at the moment, only talks. So there is no reason for deployment of aircrafts or any other situation, because what do we do? Rather than helping the situation, then we provoke them even further. We understand the North Koreans, they are having a new leader, and they always speak of this understanding of the war going on for years. As far as then the nuclear capability, many times they have activated, deactivated, activated, deactivated. And then when they give these reports, they start with the rhetoric, but then later, then they deploy these situations over there in Guam where they have these defenses over there. So it even provokes them further rather than helping. We should have been talking to them and verify if a reunion could be made and then talk through the situation. But then there is nothing going on in our country, and they provoke these situations to become a novel. This is what they decide to do. There is no other reason. Our economy is not improving. Jobs are not being then generated. We are not taxing as we should have. And then we simply provoke wars. This is what goes on. There's not much going on in our country. So then, from the viewpoint of the Messiah, what has he then explained as far as the time of the end? The Messiah said then in Revelation 1:8, it does not belong with Revelation. The translator of the scripture decided to use a Megillah, or then a section of a document not related with the autumn feast. It's related with the time of the restoration of the holy cities of the Messiah. So then the Messiah said, precisely then, the freighters would be in charge, no longer nations. So what the nations should be doing then? Lining up themselves with the Chinese system. That's why this war over there in Korea, nothing is going to take place, because North Koreans, they are also Asians. And the Asians do understand if there is a war, their system would be then in jeopardy. Because the factory of the world is neighbor of North Korea. So come on, let's think. Nothing is going to come out of this war. Because the Asian market must not be disturbed. So then, when it comes, nations then should line up themselves with the system. Freighters are going to be in charge. What do we understand of freighters? Did not then Daniel, the politician, say the knowledge would increase? From a viewpoint of a tradesperson, you used to do trade. So then we understand freighters are then related with labeling. Labeling of a box, labeling of parcels, labeling of containers. And when the system comes shortly in the next 36 months, then you're going to download in your computer, and then you're going to start investing and purchasing via the same system where the government has no control over it. The government can do trade with it, but they can't investigate someone else's, so it is absolutely secret. What's going to take place is the increasing of packages. Very many, increasing of ships and aircrafts, and not enough space to contain those packages. So the Messiah said then, give to the government what belongs to the government, when he was then questioned regarding taxes. How do we relate then increasing of knowledge and freighters? Computer. How do you match those? Taxation instantly every time a labeling of a freighter, either of a container or a box or a parcel, is then printed, taxes should be then instantly deducted. So then we begin our understanding then staying away from war. Because during the time of the scripture is time of restoration, and if you read very cautiously the 61st chapter of Yeshayahu, you find even the Gentiles were included. So then it's no longer focusing upon war. It is rebuilding time. Time of understanding, instant taxation system, because the new system coming is not going to be as it used to be. The Creator must show what He is like, and He is not going to use the systems during the time of the 1,000 years, those systems created. He won't use those. He's going to use His own system. And He has chosen a country to become then the factory of this planet, where the others then must work. What do we understand then the main players of the base of this statue? Read Daniel the 11th chapter. But then understanding times and seasons is then crucial. And then the holy mikras, or the holy feasts, as then the shadow prophetic events. So then we understand how the movement of these kingdoms are going to be playing out prior of the introduction of the sons of Ishmael. So then, from this viewpoint, countries then, rather than mixing up with wars and stupidity, they should be thinking of taxation, doing what the Messiah said to do. Every time there is a label printed of a box, of a container, a parcel, should be instantly taxed. So then when the system of the Chinese comes, and it is coming, then the governments can deduct the taxes, do them. So then they can prepare themselves for working in line with the freighters. No longer governments, we are speaking of freighters. The Messiah gave the answer in the future. So then the proper view of the situation, we observe the past of what was then recorded. So then via observing the past you understand the future. This means what the Messiah said regarding freighters. It is related with our time. When the Chinese system comes, you can download in your computer. You are going to be your own investor. Have this in mind. The middleman then is gone. Retailers are gone. Because you can buy the same product for half of the price and then delivered to your home. That's why the Messiah mentioned in the freighters of the earth, because when the time comes where then is going to have a critical point of the set apart or the people of the Messiah, then the Messiah speaks in a very critical moment where they must turn back and resume their holy services. Prior of this time, we understand nations should line up themselves with what the Messiah said in the past regarding the future. Instant taxation system. Because the main work of governments in the future is simply taking care of roads, taking care of ports, taking care of mining, and refueling stations. Those are going to be the primary objective of the countries. There is no other function. The Messiah said the freighters of the earth, those are going to be in charge. So then when the system comes, you will understand. Because the Messiah already gave the answer. And the freighters of the earth. When he said freighters of the earth, then you have to understand what then Daniel the politician said. As you read the scripture, layer upon layer, there is no precept upon precept, line upon line. Those were wrong translations. From the holy instructions you understand layers of understanding. 2nd chapter must lay of the 12th chapter. So then you understand the statute and what it means. And then the 12th chapter then complements the rest of it related with the future. The 11th chapter speaks of the time of the restoration. So we are during the time of the calendar of the Holy Creator as per events layered in the past. So then we understand the future. You can be sure of it. Lazy politicians, they won't have any more jobs. The freighters are going to say whom they want over there and whom they won't. And if the job does not get done, if the freighters they say we want a port built in this area and then take care of it. Has to be done. If it doesn't get done, they're going to find out who is the person making the obstacle and that person is out of there. It's very simple. They won't have any more this conversation because we have to find out what it is, and this bureaucracy that goes on around, and those will no longer exist. Because when you transfer yourself from politicians that are lazy and scoundrels, and you understand then the objective of the freighters, there is a distinct path. And then this distinction of path is going to make the future government. If they are not in line with it, governments have no more job. That's why the Messiah said, and the freighters of the earth. There is a reason. So let's do what the Messiah said. Start taxing instantly. If you buy a candy of 10 cents, a cent belongs to the government. Instantly, when there is for sale of a candy, you pay 10, then a cent belongs to the government instantly. Or a car or any other item. So we can prepare ourselves then for what comes in the future. Because if we don't do this, and when the system comes, then the ports, they're going to be outdated, airports outdated, not enough space for the parcels, and the captains of the ships, they are not going to be waiting around. They have to unload their cargo and move on to the next stop. So our governments are not truly in line with what the Messiah said. They are clinging to those junkies of the 1,000 years of deceit, the same junk, the same traditions, the same crap. The problem is, we are no longer living in the time of deceit. We are during the time of the dragon. You know what deceit means? Devil, slanderer, liar. We are no longer in those times. When knowledge increases then precision. And you can't lie while being precise, can you? No, you can't. Thus, we understand then the time of the dragon. That's why the Chinese system of the dragon precision does not mean evil, means precision. That's why the system then is coming. So then, very simple. Let's do what the Messiah said to do. So please stay tuned. Much more coming up.